CEO or someone with a COO, Chief Operating Officer, to help put the right processes in place and increase efficiencies and, most importantly, increase the profit. Such trusted advisors, CEO or COOs, should work on setting up the business in a manner, get ready for this, business owners, that is less dependent on you and a few individuals that have been there since the beginning. That's why I invited JJ Richa to come and talk about this. His firm is Business Vision Advisory. JJ, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Let's get started with a question about your firm. What makes Business Vision Advisory kind of unique from other people and firms that say they might do something similar to you?
Thank you for inviting me first. I really appreciate being here. Business Vision Advisory is a little bit differentiated than others is by the fact that we are more of an entrepreneurial firm.
Okay.
My background specifically, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started several companies. And when I go help others that are entrepreneurs, business owners that have been running their businesses for a long time, and they're trying to exit, they're trying to do a succession planning or potentially, want to sell their business, I come at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint versus coming at it from just a management consultant or someone that comes in to provide maybe a strategic plan, disappears and comes back in 3 months and says, okay, where are you at? And they're not there, that nothing's been done. So what we do is, we've been in the trenches. I've been there, started 10 companies. I sold 3 out of the 10 that I've started. And when I'm there, I know the pains that business owners go through, from trying to make the payroll the next Monday, right? From trying to figure out how to increase sales, how to create, a good marketing plan. So I come at it from the entrepreneurial standpoint, who's been in the trenches before,
right,
and help them implement a strategic plan that we put together and execute it hand in hand.
Plus, you have the successful exit experience. You said 3 of the companies that you founded, you were able to successfully exit. And I think, I believe it's hard to do something well you do not do frequently. And few business owners, unlike you, have started multiple businesses and exited multiple businesses. So many times this is the first time for them that they've ever done that. They don't know what they don't know about exiting a business.
It's very true. And the other thing I would say is I've learned a lot more from the other ones.
Right. So they benefit from your experience, right?
They benefit from the pitfalls that I've been, through, and that I know not to make the mistakes that I've made before.
So I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask you, and I'm going to hop around a little bit. I'm curious, in your experience, if it confirms my belief, which is what I said in the open, that all too often business owners put off the kind of planning they should be doing to successfully exit their firm with the highest valuation possible. Is that your experience?
That's almost very true all the time.
Okay.
What happens is someone wants to exit, they decide they want to do it right away, or they don't plan it ahead of time. Or most of what I've seen along my career is that they want their valuation in their mind is much higher than what the true business valuation is.
Yeah.
So when they get to a point where, let's say a business may be worth 5 million, but in their head it's worth 15. So how do you bridge that gap between 5 and 15? It's really hard to do. And also, you have to think about, what kind of lifestyle they've been used to, and how are they going to maintain that same lifestyle if they don't get the $15 million as an exit.
Right.
So there's a big gap in between. So one way of kind of bridging the gap is maybe try to increase that valuation. But it takes 2, 3, maybe 5 years to get to a point where a 20-year-old company has been around for a while, and now you need to help it increase, in any business, regardless of what business it is, you need to increase sales, decrease, expenses,
right,
and then increase your gross profit margin and potentially increase your EBITDA at the end of the day.
Right, because you know this better than I, but my sense is from talking with business owners and studying this subject somewhat that 1 year is not the valuation made, right?
It's not
a
enough.
buyer is going to be looking for a trend there, and they need several years of performance at a certain level to justify the valuation.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, investment bankers and brokers, they're looking, if they're, having someone help them sell the business, they're going to look for at least 3 years.
3 years.
Yes. So that's the traditional way. Now, there are companies that, potentially can grow faster and they can show faster growth, for example. But most of the time, 3 years is the average.
Okay, so we're talking with JJ Richa, and we're talking about what he does with his firm, which is Business Vision Advisory. I'm wondering who you help. I'm very much believe for entrepreneurs to be successful, they have to have a well-defined niche or a series of niches. And so can you tell us what your well-defined niche is?
So, it's changed over the years, which is like any business. Every one of my businesses that I started, it started one way. And then by the time it became a real business, it was completely different than how it started.
Pivoted.
I pivoted many times. So not just once.
Okay.
So
he's a serial pivoter.
And a serial pivoter, that's for sure. And if you're not a serial pivoter, there is actually a problem because, again, most of the time when you start a business, you have it one way in your head. And then when you get to a point where it's not working, you have to change. It's not working, you change again until you get it to a point where it becomes a real business.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to give up. So, or sometimes you say, I'm persevering, and you go through. So, to answer your question, it kind of evolved over the year, but now I've been concentrating on the 5 to 50 million in revenue.
Okay.
Now we can go a little bit below and a little bit above, but I've noticed that not many firms like mine concentrate on this from the standpoint of helping entrepreneurs in either a fractional COO type role or an interim CEO type role. Most firms concentrate on companies over 100 or 200 million, where no one is serving this smaller middle market or lower middle market bracket of.
I love it when an entrepreneur finds an underserved niche. Right.
That's what it's all about, right?
Right. It makes it easier.
It makes it easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you finding when you come in to work with these sized companies? Is there do you have a playbook that you've been able to say, well, this generally is the right way to go, or is it required sort of every situation is unique and you sort of have to go in and sort of get a lay of the land? It's
kind of a combination. So in general, there are certain things that work regardless of what type of business, right? So, it could be change management. It could be the culture, building the right culture for the business. It could be accountability, for the employees. It could be empowering, engaging. And those are potentially similar tactics or strategies that need to be implemented. Of course, you got to look at the P&L, you got to look at the finances, you got to look at, but then the different part of it is that, what kind of industry? How do you market to that industry? What's your customer acquisition cost? How do you sell to that industry? There are a lot of other things that now become different. If it's a manufacturing operation versus a retail operation versus maybe a restaurant, then the strategies start to change. So some could be basic business requirements that need to be implemented in every business, and the other is kind of it changes every time I go into a business.
That's interesting. One of the things that I believe to be true, and it feels a little bit contentious when I say it, but I don't mean it that way, but many people take it that way. My experience is that a company will only grow as large as the leader is capable of growing it to. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I agree with that. I think there are kind of, if you want, brackets in revenue. So there is a if you're starting a company from 0 to 1 million, requires certain set of skills.
Yes.
Million to 3, another set of skills.
Okay.
Maybe 3 to 10, another set of skills. So and there are very few entrepreneurs, business owners, or like the ones you've heard of, like maybe Bill Gates. He took a company from 0 to billions, and those are very rare individuals that can take a company from 0 to hundreds of millions or billions of dollars.
Yes.
Because they have all the skills that are required. They're a handful worldwide, or maybe few handfuls,
right?
But not everyone can do the same thing. So what I bring, or my firm brings to the table, is helping these entrepreneurs, these business owners, maybe transition through the different brackets or the different, revenue,
Right.
where you need different skills.
Sounds like you almost augment sometimes, maybe, for them,
We
allowing
augment.
them to break through to the next plateau, which is the way to get a better valuation, is to be bigger, right? I mean,
That's
that
right.
is the
That's at
idea.
the end of the day. That's what it is.
You're
And
not a turnaround guy. You're not there to slash and burn the expenses. You're there to make a more profitable, or at least a more financially viable and attractive firm.
That's very true. The other thing that potentially we can concentrate on, and I like to do, and I've done it again in the companies that I've started and run and exited from, is that look at potentially who's going to buy your company. And so you could actually kind of shop around and find out who potentially could buy your company. And it may not be easy work. Your investment banker can do it. Your broker can do it. You could do it as a business owner. But what happens when you do that is you could find maybe 10, 12 companies that are ready to acquire, and they're going to tell you, I'm willing to acquire these types of businesses with these features.
Sure.
And then you can mold your company
Yes.
in a way that really fits the needs of potential acquisition
Right.
and acquirer. And what happens when you do that is that acquirer becomes a strategic buyer and not a financial buyer.
Right, so you get
your
off of that.
valuation
Right.
increases automatically.
Right. You're much more attractive to someone who you have an accretive business model to, right?
Right.
Somebody that's buying you for that.
Instead of basically buying the assets or buying your customer base, and now it's a complete financial transaction
Right.
that increases potentially their revenue, and without really having a strategic acquisition that could potentially increase the revenue dramatically.
I find also sometimes on the acquiring side, some of the companies that are buying smaller companies look at it and go, you know what, with our management or with our discipline, with our this, we can take what these guys have gotten to 8 million and take it to 18 million or 80 million, right?
That's right.
And they're willing to make that acquisition because they believe they can do more with the asset. And sometimes they have a bigger infrastructure that allows the company to grow that the entrepreneur just didn't have access to.
Very true.
And
Very
it's
true.
not just the skill set of the entrepreneur; it may be the resources available to them.
Yeah.
So, how do you, JJ, deal with the emotional aspect of a business owner who is wanting to work with you to successfully build a strategy to exit their baby?
Oh, wow. That's probably the hardest part. I know you knew that. So, first of all, you're dealing with everybody and not just the business owner who started. You're dealing with the family. You're dealing with the spouse. You're dealing with
Right.
everybody
The
in
kids.
the business, with the kids. Yeah, with everybody. So potentially it could be that these business owners, sometimes they need a coach, and that's why part of what I do in the business, I'm not a business coach per se. Sometimes I could help, but I bring in others that could
Sure.
help me. So maybe some business coaching, maybe some life coaching that could really prepare them. That's why it takes more than a year or 6 months to exit, because it takes time to get someone from one point to the next.
Right.
So sometimes they need that emotional support where I could bring others that I've trusted, advisors that I know that could really potentially help someone. But in general, the ones that really succeed at exiting are the ones that are coachable. So meaning as a business owner, if you're not coachable in order to modify what you've been doing for the past 10 years, but you still want to exit and increase your valuation, then that's going to be really hard.
You don't have many degrees of freedom there to work with, do you?
That's right. Not many.
Yeah. I'm not going to change. I don't want to change anything, but I want you to get this thing up
Right.
to be more valuable.
So that's the biggest thing is, you put processes in place. You do an assessment. You do a SWOT analysis. You do whatever it is that's required. And then part of what I do is I meet with everybody in the company, regardless if they're 10 people or 200 people.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I
That's a big commitment.
It's a very big commitment, but trust me on this. People know what's wrong, and people
That's
tell
true,
you.
They do. They do.
And
Now's the chance
sometimes
to
they
fix it.
trust you.
Right.
Sometimes they don't, but it takes sometimes time. It may take me 3-4 months to get all the trust from everybody, but I will know what's wrong really from the first 2-3 weeks I'm there. I'll know exactly what's wrong, and I start making changes. But again, it's the coaching, the willingness to make these changes that is going to make the big difference. Sometimes, I'll tell you a quick story. one of the companies that I helped a couple of years ago, I was making a lot of changes. The entrepreneur was kind of not, he doesn't want to make a lot of changes, but he's not resistant, right? So he's not completely resistant, but at the same time, so I was making a lot of changes very quickly. And then he said, you know what? We agreed you're going to be here for 6 months. I could see the value. Let's keep you here for at least a year,
Wow.
but please slow down. So I only heard that once.
Well, I give that guy a lot of credit.
Oh yeah, a lot of credit. And we made a lot of great changes.
Mm-hmm. And so we've got a few minutes left here, but I my latest book, Killing Cats Leads to Rats, Unintended Consequences. So I always bet a question there. Can you share question number 4? Can you share a strategic decision you made that the outcome was different than what you or the team had intended it to be, JJ?
So this is one of my companies. A while back, it was a software as a service company. And what we've done is we had partners in the market that are selling our product. So part of our success was that we found resellers that could help us sell in the market, distribution channel,
Makes
right?
sense, yeah.
Which makes sense because then we went from being a small company to being a very large company. So part of what we did is because it's a software as a service, we decided to give our partners, our resellers, the ability to support the software so they can make more money.
Okay.
And we thought that's great.
Right.
But
their customer.
That was not great.
No.
So the unintended consequence was customers started leaving us because there was no support.
Right.
We found out that our resellers were only interested in just selling. They did not want to do the support at all. So because the support was suffering, customers did not want to be part of our, using our software.
Sure.
And we started having attritions.
Wow.
And so quickly, within about 6 months, that's as quick as you can do it because you don't find out right away.
Right, you don't.
We changed it back to centralized support, and then, our attrition dropped dramatically.
Nice. So that's one of those life lessons that you had to learn.
Oh, yes.
Good example of an unintended consequence. All right, we only have like 2 minutes left, so I'm going to skip ahead here in the questions that I wanted to ask you. Is this a good time, and will it continue to be a good time for business owners to prepare their business to exit?
It's always a good time, and it depends on the time for the business owner, right? When they want to leave the business. Some business owners want to stay around until they're 70 or 80, and that's their prerogative to do that. But all I'm trying to say as a potential trusted advisor to some of the businesses is that you need to at least 3 years if you want to increase your valuation, if you want to prepare your business to have a better exit, less dependent on you as a business owner, and maybe more dependent on true professional operational processes,
Right.
sales processes, marketing processes that could help that business grow regardless if you're there or not.
Interesting. My wife and I, years ago, when we were selling a house, we went through the house and we fixed everything that was not right? And at one point I looked at my wife and I said, why didn't we live in this house that was this way, right? Why are we making it so nice for the next guy?
That's right.
But when I work with business owners, what I say to them is, what's the harm of having a business that could be sold tomorrow, right? Even if you don't think you want to sell it in 3 to 5 years, what's the downside to instituting the disciplines and learning from a trusted advisor how to run a business that could be sold tomorrow? Because then you really are at a disadvantage.
It's very true. So there's no harm to start early. Maybe you'll never sell that business. Maybe you'll transition it.
It'll be so good it's a cash cow, right?
Just
keep it, yeah.
Just keep it. But you're right. Why wait till the end to figure out how good can you be?
Right.
Most companies can be great if the right things are put in place.
Right. I think a little bit of disciplined process improvement goes a long way in a company that's $3, $5, $10, $15 million.
Oh, yeah.
They really can benefit significantly from operationalizing the business.
If you get to a point where you're 5 million and up, scalability could be,
Yes.
much easier than 0 to 1 million is like the very hardest.
It is.
Again, 1 to 5 is still really hard. But when you get to 5, you've gotten something in place that could potentially help you scale quickly.
Right.
It depends on the type of business, of course, right? But how quickly can you scale is how labor intensive the business is, right? How there's a lot of things involved, but with the right processes in place, with the right everything you put in place in order to make that business run, you could make it run much, much more efficiently.
JJ, earlier when I asked about your niche, you said kind of $5 to $50 million. My other question is, any certain industries, technology, non-technology, manufacturing, service? Where do you like to spread your wings?
This is where kind of it becomes more general, I guess. But so my background is mainly software, IT, engineering, and this are the companies that I've started myself. But I could tell you that the companies that I've been helping for the past 6-7 years now have been really all over the place.
Okay.
Because business is business at the end of the day. So from retail to manufacturing, to distribution, to restaurants, specialty retail as well, also construction, contract services, logistics. So I've been really all over the place.
Yeah,
yes.
that's a great experience.
Yes.
That's valuable.
And sometimes things I didn't know anything about, but
You learn.
But I learned.
All right. If someone would like to learn more, JJ, about you and your firm, how do they find you online?
So they can find us online at businessvisionadvisory.com, and they can also call at 949-419-6924.
Could you say that again?
949-419-6924.
Thank you for being a friend of the program, a part of the Critical Mass community. I appreciate your time today and sharing a bit of what you know.
Thank you very much.
I've enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I want to thank our engineer for today. He's also the station owner, Mr. Paul Roberts, and my three engineers my three producers without whom I could not do this show, Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and Haley Stern. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, let's start with LinkedIn. I'm Richard Franzi, Franzi. And until our next show, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.